This is Richard Featherstone from mybibledevotions.com, and in this video I want to highlight an important lesson from 1 Samuel chapter 2. Specifically, I want to look at a three-step guide for parents and leaders. As we learn about the problems that are going on in Eli's household, we gain a perspective on how we should be leaders in our home and also in our businesses and in our community. So this is really designed for people who have some type of responsibility in being a guide or a supervisor over others. So it certainly can fit anyone who works in the community and has people they supervise, or anyone who is a parent who has younger kids that they have to provide guidance to. In this particular chapter, we see that the responsibility is threefold. First, we as a leader or as a parent need to be aware of the behavior of those that we're responsible for. Second, we need to address whatever problems we see that they are partaking in, and we need to address that directly with them so that they're aware that we know that there's a problem and that they need to disengage from their activities and do something different and positive. And third, when the individual that we're responsible for does not take our corrective advice or instructions, we need to take appropriate action to make sure that they do not continue in their bad behavior. So if we were to put this simply into 3 words, we could say that this chapter is teaching leaders and parents to be aware, to address problems, and to act appropriately when those problems are not being taken care of by those that we are responsible for. So let's go ahead and take a look at the specific situation. In verses 12 through 13, we learn that Eli's sons were scoundrels who had no respect for the Lord or for their duties as priests. What we find out from these verses is that the 2 sons of Eli were stealing the sacrificial offerings that the people were offering to God. So they were sending around some of their servants to go around and actually confiscate burnt offerings and take them, if needed, by force. And then apparently they were selling that and making money off of those offerings, those meat offerings. The other thing that we learn is that these men were seducing young women under their supervision. So women who were coming to the tabernacle to help out with duties there, even though we know that Eli's sons were married, they were engaging in extramarital affairs, seducing these young women who were there to actually help set up the tabernacle and maintain it. So these were very serious problems. Now the question then becomes, was Eli aware of what his sons were doing? Because the first question we talked about in our 3-step guide is the parent or the leader aware of the bad behavior of the people that they're responsible for? And what we learn is that in verse 22, it says, "Now Eli was very old, but he was aware of his sons, of what his sons were doing to the people of Israel." So we can go ahead and say, yes, Eli was very much aware of what was happening. So check the box, he was aware. That's an important role for any supervisor or parent, is to be aware of the behavior of those they're responsible for. The next question is, did Eli address these problems with his sons? Did he confront them with the issue and let them know that it was inappropriate? In verses 23 and 24, Eli says, "I have been hearing reports from all the people about the wicked things you're doing. Why do you keep sinning? You must stop, my sons. The reports I hear among the Lord's people are not good." So there's a couple things here. First, he's indicating that his sons must stop. And then he's saying to them that he hears among the Lord's people that what they're doing is not good. So it's not good, they must stop. So we could conclude that yes, Eli is actually doing the right thing once he heard about the problems and addressing it. So in a similar way, as parents or as leaders, when we hear about those who we're responsible for, and we hear that they're engaging in activities that are irresponsible, dangerous, or illegal, then we should not ignore it, but actually address it. But what about the third piece? The third piece is taking action. So we're going to look and see. Well, Eli actually interacts with his sons, and he tells them to stop it, that they are offending God, and that they would actually have to eventually is what he's saying is they're going to have to face the Lord about their actions. But it says in verse 25, Eli's sons wouldn't listen to their father. Further, an actual prophet comes from God to Eli and confronts him and says, "So why do you scorn my sacrifices and offerings? Why do you give your sons more honor than you give me? For you and they have become fat from the best offerings of my people Israel." So we see later in this passage that this prophet of the Lord is confronting Eli. He's saying, you've addressed the issue with your boys, but you haven't stopped them from continuing their bad behavior. They're not listening to you. They're doing whatever they want. And you are not taking appropriate action, because as the high priest, he had the capability. And as a father in that day, he had the capability to completely stop their bad behavior. But he did not. So that question then becomes, did he take action? No, he did not. So let's look at a visual representation of this three-step guide. We start up here with a problem that is occurring due to the behavior of someone that we are responsible for, someone we're supervising at work, or perhaps one of our kids who we as a parent are responsible for. The question we have to ask ourselves is, are we aware of their behaviors? And so in Eli's case, he is aware that his two sons were engaging in some pretty bad behavior. If we're not aware, then that often will lead to disaster, because that person will quickly discover that no one is really paying attention to their bad behavior, and they're going to get away with it. So Eli was aware of it, and it's something that we should be doing as a parent or supervisor, is being aware of those who we're responsible for. But if we're aware, that doesn't lead to a resolution in and of itself. We need to then address the problem with that person. If we don't address the problem with the person, then it will lead to disaster once again, most likely. In Eli's case, he did, in fact, address the problem with his two sons. He told them that what they were doing was a sin. It was a sin against the people and against God, and that they needed to stop doing what they were doing. So in a like manner, we as parents and as supervisors need to address the problem with the person we're responsible for. Now, many times, that will actually lead them to change their ways. They discover, oh, somebody is paying attention and they have actually warned me, I better knock this off. Sometimes, perhaps, in some cases, they didn't fully understand the consequences of their action. So for us to approach them with that, that would stop them from continuing. However, it doesn't mean that in all situations that once we address it with them that they'll stop. Sometimes they will just ignore us, or just prefer to continue doing what they are doing. And in that particular case, we have a choice again to either take action to stop that behavior, or to take no action at all, inaction. In Eli's case, he did not take action, and it led to disaster. In fact, we find in later chapters that both Eli and his two sons will die because of this. So we do need to take appropriate action in the position that we're in, and we need to take that action to resolve the problem down here. What's interesting, and I think a deep insight from this, is that if we do not do what we're supposed to do by being aware, addressing the problem with the person that we are responsible for, and then taking appropriate action to get them to stop that behavior, then what will so often happen, and it does happen actually in this book of 1 Samuel, is that God will work his way through this system as well. So God was aware that Hophni and Phinehas were taking the sacrificial offering, that they were seducing the young women. God was also aware that Eli was not taking appropriate action. And then God addressed it with Eli. He said, you need to stop doing this. And you need to take control of this situation. As the high priest, I expect it from you. And he had the prophet of the Lord come to Eli and tell him that. And then Eli did not take action. He did not resolve the problem. And so God took action. And as we see, he actually puts an end to Eli's life and also Hophni and Phinehas. So we want to perhaps make a copy of this and remind ourselves that if we don't take the appropriate action, God very much will. So if you'd like to actually have a copy of this, maybe print it off, put it in your Bible as a reminder, or to think about ways that you can improve it and so you can avoid disaster, I recommend that you visit my website, mybibledevotions.com. We're going to go there now. Once you're at the site, you can go to the link 1 and 2 Samuel. Once you get to this page, you can actually scroll down to the appropriate chapter that you're interested in. In this particular case, we're interested in chapter 2. If you click on the handout right here, you will actually see that you can view it and save it, or you can print it. I recommend print settings and preview. You can see what it will look like once you print it, and then you can just simply print that. So a really nice and quick way to have something as a reminder from this section of Scripture. I want to also encourage you to travel up here to the top, go to the forum. You can visit some of the potential questions in the 1 Samuel conversations. To do that, you'll want to log in. It's free to join and be a member. So I hope that you take that opportunity. In the meantime, feel free to also explore the website a little bit. I have other devotions available. Reach out to me through the author link. You can come down here and actually either email me at devotions@richardfeatherstone.com or send me a quick note. Perhaps you can share with me some ideas that you have from 1 Samuel chapter 2, or you can provide some ideas on how I can improve this website. So I hope that you're enjoying 1 Samuel, and I look forward to talking with you more about some insights from chapter 3 very soon. God bless.